John Cowley with Pickleball Central, and we're here with Ben Johns to talk about the new Perseus 16 millimeter. You helped develop what was one of the most popular paddles last year. Paddle a lot of people love, play with. It may or may not be in my bag. I can't really say, but
you're impartial.
Impartial, totally impartial. But now you've changed after a year, developed something similar but different. Mm-hmm. Tell us, what are the biggest differences between the Perseus and the Hyperion?
Yeah, so it's really just mild changes to me, but in pro pickleball and in pickleball in general, mild differences in the paddle can make big changes in the game. So the most major change to me is just the shape. So right up here at the top, the edges, instead of kind of the arrow curve, we have more rounded corners, but more of a flat top. And for me, this was just important as kind of a personal preference thing, especially usually in pickleball for me, it's about how I hit at full extension and in more difficult situations, because when you're in an easy situation where you got the ball lined up, you're hitting the middle, and then it doesn't really matter, right? But for me, it's more about when you're hitting it out here, what happens then? So for me, when I'm at full extension on the run, hitting from a non-stable position, I'll often hit near the edge of the paddle in order to kind of get more whip on the ball and a little more reach, of course. And that just enables me to put the ball where I want it more efficiently in bad positions. And I just feel like the corners here definitely help me with the more wristy stuff that is really important to me personally. Now, for the people that use the Hyperion and are switching to this, you might not notice a difference when you're hitting, say, a ground stroke, right? Because you're just hitting kind of a normal stroke, you hit the middle of the paddle, and it's really not going to feel that much different because the surface is the same, core's a little different. We'll get to that in a second. But you're really going to feel the difference more when you have either slight mishits, or maybe you're purposely mishitting the ball, which I do sometimes, or at full extension when you're hitting it up here and near the corners. That's when you're going to notice, I think, and especially if you use a little more wrist on some stuff, that's when you're going to notice the ball staying on the paddle longer and definitely giving you more control over the bad positioning shot switch. You try not to get into it, but it happens.
So I just learned an important tip from Ben, that when you have a mishit, you say you did it on purpose.
That's right. I heard from Brian Ashworth that his best shots are always mishits. So you got to listen to one of the best of the game from a long way back.
The OGs. So you said the core's a little bit different.
Yeah, so the surface is very similar, but the core we changed slightly to be just a little poppier, a little hotter. Won't get too technical on why that is, but we got a more poppy core in here, so it definitely should be coming off hotter, especially on the volley. So I don't notice too much of a difference on the ground stroke. You'll still kind of have that soft feeling on the ground strokes where you can get popped depending on how hard you're swinging, but the little movements, just volleys like this, is really where you get the immediate power on smaller swings.
And you're staying with a 16 mil. It comes in a 14 mil version, but you still like the forgiveness you get with 16.
Yeah, well, you see, John, I miss hit the ball quite a bit, so I need the
on
forgiveness.
Purpose.
Yeah, that's right. Both purpose and non-purposeful. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for both versions. The 14 is definitely a little hotter, maybe a little more maneuverable, a little bit lighter. And it's definitely a personal preference thing. I know a lot of people that prefer the 14. I like the 16. I think I have the power I need for the most part, and I'll stick to the forgiveness instead.
That's fantastic to see how involved you are every time you bring out a paddle, and now you can get it at pickleballcentral.com.